Times,
Behind the
bookshelf
times here.
behind you.
Behind the times.
Yeah, I got you. It's just a couple of questions are going to go back into that kind of stuff.
This is the only picture I have got the snow without snow review.
That's crazy. That's crazy. All right, well, let me see what time we got here. It's 7:31. Looks like we got close to 50 people on. More people will be coming in as we get started. Jimmy, just do me a favor. If you see something going wrong where I don't see it on the side there, please text me or just unmute yourself and help me out here. All right, Jim? I'd like to welcome everybody on the call tonight. We have 4 outstanding people on the call with us. We have from Stony Brook University, Coach Matt Sank. We have Nick Derba from Maine, University of Maine, and we have Dave Lauber from Montclair State, and the one and only Phil Condary, who was with us in the college ranks and is now with the Toronto Blue Jays. So thank you guys for taking time away from your families to be on the call with us. I'd like you guys to, if you don't mind, introduce yourselves one at a time. We'll go with seniority here. So we're gonna go with Matt. We'll keep it that way. We'll go with Matt. We'll go with Phil. We'll go with Dave. I think Dave, what are you, about 37, Dave? I can't hear you, babe. Let me see. I gotta unmute you there. There you go.
There you go. I'll be 36 this year, yeah.
Nick, what do you, I think that's close too, Nick. You're Johnny's age.
34. I'm the young guy at 34.
You're the young guy. You're the low man on the totem pole tonight, but that's cool. That's cool. So just, if you don't mind, just introduce yourselves one at a time. Give us a little bit of information about your school, about yourself, and then we can get into this. So go ahead, Matt.
Okay, thanks, Nick. Thank you again for having me, and it's good to see Dave Lauber. What's up, Dave?
Hey, Coach. Good to see you.
Part of the Stony Brook College World Series staff in 12, and Nick Derber. Someone we're competing against every year, and known Phil forever, just like I've known Nick forever. So this is great. I really appreciate it. I'm actually, well, let's see, if I do the math right, this one is going to be my 30th year until the pandemic hit. So this is my 29th and a quarter year of coaching. I was a child prodigy. I started when I was 10. I wish, but it's been an amazing run for 3 decades, unbelievably, and I've had great assistant coaches, great players that has allowed me to have this kind of run and the success we've had. Like I mentioned, Dave was a part of my 2012 coaching staff that went to the World Series. I see one of my former players on here, Booth, and his son Justin. They're proud members of the organization now. Again, just really happy to be here. Stony Brook, been there for maybe a half, it's a young school. I've been there just under half of the length of the school. When I got the opportunity to go there, it was really about, going to a place where I felt like I could build something, and all along the way, I had great administrations, great presidents that supported athletics, and that was a big part of what we did. Another big part of what Stony Brook's about is it was a terrific academic institution. So, that was an easy box for recruits and their families to check off. They were going to get a great education. And if they were getting a New York kid was coming there to get a great education, it was extremely affordable. Like we like to say at Stony Brook, you're coming, what you're going to do, you're going to earn a degree and not debt, especially if you're a New Yorker or a Staten Islander. Tuition at Stony Brook today is just over $7,000. Probably there are Catholic high schools in the city that cost more than that, or private schools just about anywhere. So you get a lot of bang for your buck. This university has just grown and grown and grown over the time I've been there. I think a real reflection on a university's commitment to athletics is their facilities, and that's no different at Stony Brook. They just finished this past year. They finished a brand new indoor practice facility that all the teams can practice in. We have our own hitting facility. A couple of years ago, thanks to a donor, a $2 million weight room, state-of-the-art weight room. The facilities are really reflective of the commitment the university's made. Could go on for quite some time, but I guess I'll finish with, we've had a lot of individual and team success, and during that time, the university has allowed myself and my coaching staffs to, I've had the opportunity to coach 5 major leaguers. Joe Nathan, who was a 6-time Major League All-Star, our field's named after him. He made a huge donation back in 2011. The field opened, and we've had over 50 players signed or drafted out of our Stony Brook. In 2012, the World Series team, we had 7 players drafted off of that team on our Shock the World run. We probably have averaged since that time about 2 players getting drafted a year.
That's pretty good. That's pretty cool.
Just proud of everything we have at Stony Brook. Thanks, Nick.
That's awesome. And we've been trying to get you a guy for the longest time. So we got some good players in our program coming up the ranks. So please don't give up on us. Definitely don't give up on me. Philip.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for having me, Nick. Great to be on with Matt, with Dave and Nick, and with Richmond County. So I'm 36 as well, just like Dave.
Yeah, turn that around, bro. You look good for 36. I'm currently with the Toronto Blue Jays. Really excited and really happy to be with them. Like everybody else, we're really excited about this coming year until things came to a halt. But everyone's dealing with that now. But my past 20 years of coaching in Division I baseball, I spent 18 of those at my alma mater at Seton Hall. Some great years and a lot of great players. Several I should say, from Richmond County. And a couple of years at Rutgers as well. So, and I think we managed to get some Richmond County players there as well. So, but it's great to be with you. Great to be with you guys. I'm looking forward to some questions, and hopefully I could, add some perspective to whether it's recruiting, coaching, or working with players and so forth. So, just appreciate the invite. That's cool. The Lansing Lugnuts. Tell us a little bit about the Lansing Lugnuts. I love that name.
Well, I can't say much. I never got to Lansing. We were still in spring training. That was one of the destination this year. But so it's currently on hold. But had a really just a tremendous experience in spring training with the organizations, a lot of really smart people, a lot of great technology that's being used today at that level for player development. And just really, was excited about this season, get a chance to work with a lot of future major leaguers. And so just waiting to hear a good word to get back to Florida, get back to training camp, finish that up, and see where we go from there.
Cool. Very good. The Midwest League you're playing, right?
Yeah, hopefully if it gets going.
Good. Go ahead, David, you're up, bud. I don't see Nick on the call. Nick, you still with us, right, bud? I didn't lose you?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, there you go. Okay, bud. Good.
Coach Defendis, thanks so much for having me on tonight. Really appreciative of it, and to be amongst these coaches, some guys that I've obviously worked for, Coach Sank, and have tremendous respect for what he's did for myself personally and what I've learned from him. And having watched Coach Kandari for years in New Jersey and the success he's had, and obviously, Coach Durba, I know of you pretty well as well. So really, really excited to be here with everybody. And I just took over the head coaching job at Montclair State in December. We are located just right outside of New York City on Route 3. One of the most storied Division III programs in the country. Montclair State plays a beautiful Yogi Berra Stadium on our campus, which you see behind me. We're fortunate to have 16 conference titles, 27 regional appearances, 13 World Series appearances, 3 World Series championships, and 35 All-Americans. And a small fact probably some of you don't know is Coach Defendis once walked the dugouts at Montclair State as an assistant coach. So
Let me correct you there for a second.
what was the official title?
I was an interim head coach there when Moose went down with his surgery. So I lasted a whole season there. I survived.
Well, between you, Coach Hill, Moose, and yourself, I got big shoes I got to walk into. But we're the second largest state institution in New Jersey, only behind Rutgers. We've got about 21,000 students. We've got a broad range of majors. And so I'm excited to be here and talk with you all about Montclair State and any other questions you have. One of the unique perspectives that I have is I've coached at every level from junior college to Division III, Division II, and Division I. So I'm happy to kind of touch on anything.
Well, you definitely have some big shoes to follow there with Fred Hill, who is my idol and the guy I love so much. My son Johnny played for him up at Rutgers, and he started there. And then Norm Schoenegg was there, and my mind is let me see, and one of the great ones too, Kevin Cooney, went on to coach at Florida Atlantic.
Huh?
So man, Montclair State has produced not only some good players, they've also produced some very, very good coaches. So the future looks bright, Coach.
I'll try not to screw it up, right?
Yeah, don't mess this one up. David, I'm sorry, Nick Durba, step up, bud.
Mr. D, thanks for having me on. Congrats, Coach Lorber, Coach Sank, Coach Kandari. It was a pleasure to see you guys. So just in case anyone else is wondering, I am not from Maine originally. That's how I know Mr. D. I'm a Queens boy myself. Played for Jack Curran. For the you youngsters who don't know who Jack Curran is, you should check him out. He's probably one of the best high school coaches ever.
I got some good questions for you later on, so
all right.
They'll involve Jack Curran.
Yeah, okay. So I had the privilege of going to play at Manhattan College, and played a couple of years of professional baseball with the St. Louis Cardinals. I wasn't good enough to be a big leaguer, so I realized that, and I said, it's time to hang them up and try something else out. And luckily, I had the chance to come here to the University of Maine, and which doesn't happen very often. I worked my way up the company ladder, as some may say. Started out as an assistant here, and we have a really strong tradition of a program at the University of Maine. That's something that for me, I believe that the next crop of athletes that are coming in to rebuild the tradition. We've been to 7 College World Series. We haven't hosted a regional since 1991. This is where a lot of 119 professional players. We've had big leaguers. We've had all-stars. We've had big league managers and Stump Merrill. Brian Butterfield's the third base coach with the Angels right now. So we've had a lot of really good players walk through here, and we haven't been to a regional in almost 10 years now, and this is my third year. What's that?
I say you'll change that.
Yeah, that's what we're here to do. We're here to most importantly create an environment where players are here to get an education. I grew up in a family that were both my parents were teachers. I was a pre-med bio major in college, and I was going to go to medical school. But baseball, as you all know, is a sickening disease. Once it's in your blood, it's hard to get it out. So, that's why we're here. We're here to turn out good students, turn out good baseball players, and just carry on a legacy. So,
Well, I'm sure you're going to use those seven appearances to the College World Series to your advantage on your recruiting. So,
yeah, we certainly use that, and you guys can see the background behind me. It's kind of the house that was built by those 7 College World Series. We have a really outstanding indoor facility, which we do need. It's cold up here. It snows. If you're in the Northeast, you need some good facilities. And, it's cold up here. So we want guys that want to come up here, strap it on, and get after it on a day in, day out basis.
Cool. Well, my first question to you guys, or we'll go right down the line again, Matt. I'll start with you. How was from Patrick Burns? Patrick Burns is a New Jersey player from Richmond County. He's a middle infielder, kind of could be a cross between a shortstop and a third baseman. He wants to know, how has recruiting a player now changed since there is no high school season to look at players?
That's a good question, Patrick. It's changed quite a bit. I'm not real comfortable ever truly making a judgment on a player without getting my eyes on him. We're doing our due diligence. We're watching video. We're all over the internet. We're taking care of our business in that respect. But right now the recruiting calendar has been pushed back. We can't get out and evaluate until June 1. And in New York, who knows when the governor is going to allow that. They've closed all schools and high schools and college campuses until the end of the school year. It's changed quite a bit in that, we're still guys we're staying in touch with, but by now we would have had eyes on so many players in their high school seasons. With summer ball coming up, we would have had our eyes on guys then. We're just hoping that we're going to be able to get out there sooner than later. But a lot of it is doing what we're doing now, conference calls or Zoom calls with my staff, reaching out to coaches, just doing everything we can short of getting out there and evaluating like we normally would at this time of year.
Cool. Let me ask you a question. How important is it to have conversations like we've had this week in regards to players that are in certain programs? How much weight do you put on that? I'm not only at Richmond County, but I'm sure there's a lot of other programs out there that you have high regards for. How important is it for you to have those type of conversations with the heads of those programs in regards to their players? How much weight does their opinion really have?
Those, just like any successful business, if you're going to be successful in this business, it's about relationships and building relationships. So you build trust. And, I know in our business, not blowing smoke, Nick's, but he's a man who is a honest evaluator, and he's going to tell you if your guy's a good fit for you or not, because it's about the fit. And, there are a lot of organizations out there where over these years we've been able to build that same sort of relationship. We know we're going to get someone who's going to give us an honest evaluation, and they're going to also know our program. We not only know the type of kids they have and what they're all about, but they know our program, because nobody wants to waste anybody's time, and it's about the fit. And so we lean on those guys a lot. And then there's also, there's some programs out there that, we're probably not reaching out to as much, especially with all that's going on now.
Cool. Phil Canary, two-time National Pitching Coach of the Year. We have a pitching coach question for you.
Yeah,
and
sure.
It comes from one of your boys. somebody who you watch grow up right in front of your eyes, Gregory Bruno. Especially said, hey, coach, can you ask Coach Phil this question for me tonight as a professional coach when watching young pitchers, what is the first thing you look at? Do you look at velocity? Do you look at mechanics? Or do you look at both? What is it that you'll find? What is it that intrigues you?
Great question, Gregory. By the way, he's a stud, Matt. So, Nick, you guys, if you don't know about Gregory Bruno, at least I can talk about it this way now because I'm not recruiting, but he's a stud, and there's a few other studs in this program that I've seen. Some young guys that I really respect a great deal. But to answer Greg's question, I think the first thing you look at before you even see velocity is how a pitcher moves, and so basically you see how a pitcher if he's got an athletic type of delivery, because that's something that's going to be extremely important regardless of the velocity that he has. So that's critical, and so it's going to speak to how athletic they are. It's going to speak to potential in terms of command. It's going to speak to potential or capacity for more velocity as well. So how they move on the mound is really important. So that would be probably the first thing. And it's probably usually the first thing for a good pitching coach or a good coach that's looking at a player. That's the first thing they see is just the delivery, and then obviously you're going to start to evaluate from there. But one more thing I would want to add that I think it's important even at a younger level. You just can't say that velocity doesn't matter. Velocity does matter. That there's no way around that, so it makes more sense to talk about that. It makes more sense for young players to understand that. And then at the same time, it's really important that you understand that being able to pitch is the number one thing. Being able to pitch, being able to command your stuff, and being able to get outs. That is what good coaches look for. So, but velocity matters depending on what level you're going to project for to be able to play at, and that's something that you should learn. You should know what it's going to take to play at some of the programs that that are with us tonight, at Stony Brook, at Maine, or at Montclair, or at a Seton Hall, at a Rutgers, regardless of the programs. But so hopefully that kind of gives Gregory a little bit of a feel. But your delivery, an athletic delivery, is probably the very first thing that you would look at.
Coach, real quick, let's try this second part of this question. I'm going to ask you in regards to your response, if we can keep it, to a minimum, not to. If Dylan McNamara, you remember the name? I think he's with the Yankees now. He may have been with San Francisco. Big, tall righty. You've seen him pitch many, many times. He did throw the ball hard. You did see something in his mechanics that you didn't like, and one of the things I remember you saying that you didn't like where that guys really put the good part of the bat on his ball most of the time, and that's one of the things I think that you talk about when you talk about looking at a pitcher as well. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember. Thank you for continuing to point out my mistakes in recruiting. Because I made a lot. The reality is that I think most coaches, I don't know if everybody will acknowledge it, but yeah, we make more mistakes than we make right ones. But he turned out to be an outstanding pitcher, like a lot of ones that I was fortunate to have. But yeah, you look at different things, and I think what's really important that you, as a young player, understand is that certain coaches look for it's important coaches look for specific things, whether it's in the delivery, you're looking at arm action, you're looking at different things, but in particular with that hitter, he wasn't missing many bats, there were a lot of barrels.
That's the terminology you use.
and at that time. And so that was one of the things, you know, and again, depending on the role that you're looking for with that particular pitcher, you know, if you're looking for someone that needs, you know, swing and miss type of stuff, then that's what you're recruiting, you know, at that particular time.
Cool.
But I'm really glad it worked out for him.
Yep. Very good. You're a good kid. Staten Island boy, Richmond County boy. David, since all colleges will be closed this summer, how will you be hosting, or will you be hosting showcase or camps? Being the fact that you're a Division III school, you need to rely on a little bit more resources. Tell me what your plans are, you know, for this summer, and whether or not you're going to be relying on showcases or hosting your own showcases or anything like that. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, you know, we're very similar to what Coach Sank is in. We're in a holding pattern with our state being shut down by the governor, our universities being closed. All of our classes for this summer have been moved to an online campus atmosphere. So we don't expect to host any camps this summer on campus, unfortunately. Our goal is hopefully to move that to the fall. And, you know, to touch back on the recruiting side of it, because camps are such a big piece of the Division III recruiting cycle, because we don't have the budget to necessarily get out like the Division I's do. We do have to rely on those relationships, and that's one big thing that we're doing right now is we're reaching out to coaches and talking and trusting those guys and getting video and seeing that, because when we walked in December, you know, we didn't have a commitment in the 2020 class. So we were still actively working on our 2020 class, even in, you know, with JUCO players and high school players that were seniors. So we're still trying to finish that up, you know, in the midst of this, which is kind of a unique thing to do, because we were really focusing on junior college players at that time. So I think that, you know, camps are definitely a big piece to what we will be doing in the future. Unfortunately, right now, we are postponing everything in the summer, and even the New Jersey Jackals, the independent team that uses our facility, you know, their season's postponed into the summer, and who knows what that's even going to look like if they play it. So I think we're all just in a kind of wait and see pattern right now.
Cool. That question came from Michael Langi. He's a junior at St. Joe by the Sea. The next question I have for you is from Mikey Sutter, and this is going to go out to Nick. Let me see if I can read this to you the right way. In today's age, we know schools and grades are very important to recruiting players. Other than that, besides players' physical tools, and I think this is a great question, what are some of the most important qualities you look for in a player? That's Mikey Sutter, big, tall, lean lefty, freshman.
That's a really good question. So taking aside the tangible things, you know, you throw a baseball X miles an hour, you hit it X, you know, miles an hour, you run whatever. I want to know when we get on the phone that the number one thing that we can tell is if you're engaged in the conversation. That's something that is really important to me. When you go to any school, the word commitment is very important to me. Okay, it's not just about, hey, I'm going to go to the University of Maine or Stony Brook or Montclair for 4 years. You're committing to a program. And I think that you know, the phone calls that we have with certain individuals and your visits and the relationships that you build, especially when we're talking about sophomores and juniors recruiting, those 2 or 3 years are basically culture building years for when you come into the given school. Especially for me, you're walking into a place and you're ready to go and you're part of a culture. And that's something that we do get from the phone calls. I understand. I look back on, you know, when I was in high school and getting phone calls from coaches, at first it's really cool. And then at a certain point, it's kind of like, all right, I'm tired of being on the phone. They're really important when you're actually committed to go somewhere and in the recruiting process, because you have to be able to vet the player, and the player needs to be able to vet the head coach and the coaching staff, because at the end of the day, we spend so much time together. You know, you spend a lot of time with the head coaches, the assistant coaches, and the team itself. If you don't feel comfortable about walking into that program, you have to understand that you should never be walking into a place saying, I can always transfer out. If you have that in your mind, you're making the wrong decision more than likely. And when you go somewhere, you want to go somewhere and be part of that place for the 4 or 5 years that you're there. So that for me, when we're on the phone, I'm trying to find out that commitment factor, that piece of you are all in on a place and how much time you want to spend to make that place better.
We said before that you played under the great Jack Curran. And if anybody on the call doesn't know who Jack Curran is, please Google his name. I had the pleasure of coaching against him when I was over at Severian High School. He's the John Wayne of baseball. He was something special. Let me ask you this question, Nick. What did you learn from him? And did his coaching style help you? And have you incorporated any of his style in your game?
So that whole spiel on the committing factor, that's Jack Curran. All right. I wish I could tell you that I made that up myself, but that was the first thing that Jack Curran said to us about committing to cleaning the fields, right? So, you guys are all, you guys rake your own fields, you rake your boxes. If you are familiar with Archbishop Malloy, it's surrounded by a track, and you have to be committed to running around the track, which sucks every single day you do it. And being committed to the white and the blue and the high socks. And that was something that Coach Curran always talked about. Being committed to getting better in the classroom and on the field. And, Coach Curran, I don't know too many people that call him Jack. So it's either Mr. Curran or Coach Curran. He was
Legend.
One of the most amazing life coaches I have ever been around. And more than anything else, he taught me life skills. And when he passed away, Mr. D, I'm sure you were there must have been 15,000 people that showed up to that funeral.
Oh, yeah. No, he was a legend. No question about it. Just goes to show you, and one of the reasons why I bring that up is I want the kids in the audience, when they're listening to you guys talk, it's important that they understand how important the relationships are with coaches, because we say all the time, and I had one knucklehead parent tell me one time, I don't want you to teach my son how to be a man. I want you to just teach him how to play baseball. I looked at him, and the kid's no longer in this program because it's ridiculous that someone would not think that you 4 gentlemen can bring such importance to a young man's life and teach him things that he's going to take, moving forward. So thank you for that one. Matt, we got you. You up? I got a question. I got a question from Anthony Belisario. This is a kid who everybody on the school needs to take a look at. He's only a freshman. You'll be hearing from him because most of my guys will be emailing you guys some of their information. Hopefully, can send you some different things. But at any rate, Anthony Belisario, what do you have to do, Matt? What do you have to do academically as far as Stony Brook is concerned, with grades and test scores to make sure that you can get admitted to that school? What are some of the important things you need to do?
Well, Anthony, as I said before, Stony Brook's is an outstanding academic institution. We're considered in the top 50 of all public universities in the country and the top 100 schools in the world. You're going to go into classes and you're going to be up against kids that are valedictorians and salutatorians, and the average SAT score at Stony Brook is now approaching close to 1,300. Because it's become such a popular option. As I said, there's an affordability factor with an education that's on par, according to U.S. News and World Report, with Ivy League schools. So, usually the average student would have to at least have a 90 average. You're scoring mid 1200s SAT wise to be considered to get into a class. Maybe they'll bring 4,000 students in and they'll have 40,000 applicants. So it's super, super competitive. So, you have to, absolutely have to, if Stony Brook is someplace you're considering, do the very best you can in the classroom. Now, that being said, we all know the commitment that we make to the game that we love, that we're passionate about. And our university, as I said, has been very athlete friendly and baseball player friendly. And and this is the problem, when I'm dealing with my present players, So I'm going to tell you at a minimum what you could get, and we could possibly get you in, but that's not what to shoot for, right? It's about shooting for the highest grades you possibly and the highest scores you can get on your college boards. We can get guys in with an 80 average and just over a 900 SAT if they are a Division I athlete. So
you got to bring the goods. You got to bring the goods on both ends.
Yeah. So, you got to make that, you got to, again, they're receptive to the commitment it takes to be an athlete, considered to be a Division I athlete, and so they're willing to work with someone who brings that type of ability, athletic ability, to our university.
Cool. 31 years, 800 wins. You're a class act, and you've done a great job over at Stony Brook. But the second part of my question would be, what adjustments have you made through the years to have to deal with a 21st century player?
Yeah, it's a great question. Great question, and it's I think it comes down to to the same thing when you're standing in the batter's box and you got to make adjustments. And what I could do to get to a player when I first started in '91 in the '90s, that's not necessarily, and more than likely, it's not going to work for the player who's playing for me now in 2020. So I have to reinvent myself, and I think that's something, because it is my passion and I love so much, I think I've been able to do over the years, is kind of reinvent myself. But I think if there was one thing that I've consistently done from my first year to my 30th year is, we're gonna be committed. Nick, great use of that term and what it's about. But we are going to, it's about hard work, and we're always going to have that as a staple of our program. We are going to have fun, and you want to have fun. Winning is a lot of fun. So do the things you need to do to win. And we're going to, no matter how things go, we're going to stick together, what I like to call a brotherhood. And those things have carried me through those 3 decades.
Winning cures everything, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, Phil. This is a question from Chris Gannon at Zavarian High School. What is your opinion on left-handed pitchers who primarily come over the top, switching up their arm angles for different types of pitches?
I think if I understand that correctly, I'm not sure. Regardless of of throwing angles or arm slots or left-handed pitchers, sometimes you look at them a little bit different than a righty. Again, it depends on what you need, but it's not about where you're throwing from, as long as it's an efficient, effective type of delivery. And then obviously it's always about the kind of stuff that they deliver, the kind of the pitches that they've developed, and how the hitters kind of respond to them. So if I understand that that question well, but so if you're looking at the big league level, there's lefties or righties, they're coming from all different kind of angles, and it's The one thing I would stress is that especially for young pitchers, work and practice and experiment with different arm angles, because that only speaks to how athletic you are on the mound and how much feel you have for pitching. So don't feel that you have to stay locked in one arm, in one arm slot, especially as your body, as you get older, as you age, you get bigger. A number of different things change in the delivery. So don't feel that you have to get locked into something. And if you do change slots, I think that's, again, the most important thing is that if you do change slots, your stuff still has to be effective. You can't just change slots just to change, an arm slot and give a hitter a different look. The stuff you throw up there still has to be effective. But I'm absolutely all for young people experimenting from different arm angles. It speaks more to, that you're willing to learn, you're willing to experiment, and you're willing to find, different ways to get hitters out.
Cool. How different is it now working with pro players as opposed to college arms?
Well, you certainly see a more consistent, level of arms, of pitchers, maybe a higher level of stuff, pitching stuff that's, considered with potential to pitch at the big league level. But I was extremely fortunate to coach the young men that I did, who were extremely committed, extremely determined, hardworking, just a great deal of character, a lot of talent, and guys who really went above and beyond for me. So that's what I'm looking forward to seeing more of at the pro level. Again, just getting started there. But yeah, the one major difference is just the athleticism on the mound. The size difference is something else, and just overall strength.
I would think some maturity as well.
Yeah, it just even though at the lower levels of pro ball, you may get some young fellas that didn't go to college, that came out of high school, that are still maturing. But definitely, maturity, composure, poise, those kinds of things, a little bit more obviously in the pro side.
Cool. David, how would you describe your coaching style? And also, how is it playing at Yogi Berra Stadium? And then I have a second question for you as well. We'll get the first one going.
Yeah, so first of all, Yogi Berra Stadium is fantastic. It's a real honor to be there. There's a lot of history and tradition when you walk into that stadium, in the locker room, the clubhouse, and then if you can kind of see.
Yeah, it really is a beautiful.
Trying to show you the museum, but there's a Yogi Berra Museum.
That's to your right, up in the corner there.
Kind of up over there.
Yeah.
Yogi Berra Museum, if you get the opportunity to go see it, it's a fantastic tribute to Yogi's life and his legacy that he left. And there's a small little overhang with a couple seats where he used to sit and watch practice. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to see that, but the stories are still told of him being around, the stadium and being around the team and things like that. So that's a fantastic opportunity that we get to be a part of it. And then obviously the players that have come before the current players, to live that tradition every day is unbelievable for our guys. My coaching style, it's kind of a mix of everything. It's a mix of every coach that I've worked for, and I've been fortunate to be around.
Originally, you were at George Washington as a recruiting coordinator, wasn't you?
I spent 6 years at GW as the recruiting coordinator before leaving last year. I worked for Greg Ritchie there, who's a big league hitting coach with the Pirates.
Right.
Before that, I was fortunate to be with Coach Sank, and between him and Coach Marin, who's now the pitching coach at Old Dominion, and Coach Panucci, who's the head coach at East Tennessee State, I mean, wow, just to be around those guys every day and to learn was fantastic. But we talk about 4 things in our program that I think have already been kind of resonated a little bit. And that's care, trust, development, and family. And I base my entire coaching philosophy around those 4 pillars. And I know that if we're doing those things every day for our players, then we're moving forward in the right direction to help them become the best people they want to be and to help our team become the best team we can be on the field.
Cool. My second question is, and I think a lot of the boys in the audience really have to listen to this one, is I'd like you to tell everyone how the NJAC, the NJAC conference, combines a solid education with the league success at getting players drafted or signed.
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, when I left, I coached Division III baseball in 2008, the last time before last season. And coming into this year, I didn't really know what to expect again. You know, everyone wonders, what is Division III baseball like? Is it very different than Division I? Well, the answer to that is yes, it is very different than Division I. But I was pleasantly surprised with the level of talent in the NJAC. There are Division I players sprinkled all throughout it, and it is arguably one of the best conferences for Division III baseball in the entire country.
No question.
And you on any given day, we could walk out and we can beat some Division I teams. There are definitely different levels of Division I. Okay, and I'll talk. GW is different than Florida State, and Coppin State is different than George Washington, and that's just what it is. And I would say that I like to compare the NJAC to kind of the SEC of Division III baseball. So we're fortunate to play in great facilities at a great cost and get a great education as well.
Very good. Thank you for that. Coach Derber, AJ Vigliotti, junior at St. Joe by the Sea. He's he's a student of your boy Johnny as well. And he could swing it. He's got the natural ability to square a ball up. His question is due to Corona's pandemic, do you think 2021s from the Northeast will be less recruited than the players in the warmer states, or what do you look for? Do you think you can draw a kid from Florida into Maine, or are you looking for your Northeast tough guys?
We have a pretty strong, we have some Florida guys. We have some guys that are from Texas. Ultimately, it doesn't matter where you come from. It comes back to you being able to do the little things. I do love my Northeast boys, though. That's one thing I will say. No doubt about it. I think that there's something to be said for understanding what it's like to get sawed off in February and have bees in your batting gloves and understand what that feels like. I also think that there's something to be said for understanding and going outside and long tossing in snow. So I certainly believe that the Northeast is certainly one of the most heavily recruited place, I believe, in the country. I mean, you guys got guys getting plucked from New Jersey, New York, Massachusetts, and Connecticut every single day by top programs in the country. And I'm sure Coach Kandari can express how frustrating it probably was getting plucked by in his backyard by the Vandy's and the Florida States of the world every single year. The Northeast, the one thing I love about Northeast guys is that they work and they play multiple sports. That's one thing I've seen a lot of. I think that's really important. Being a good athlete, going back to what Coach was saying before, being a good athlete, and then just continue to play. So as far as I'm concerned, we need 2021s. I know that there are many, many other schools that are needing 2021s. No one's going to forget about you because we still have to find the right players. My advice to you is to utilize this time as an advantage because there's going to be somebody that's sitting next to you on the field that is doing nothing right now. You have a chance to set yourself apart. So do the work. When the time comes, believe you me, every college coach is going to be on a baseball field looking for their next crop of players. So do not panic. you will find the right fit.
Cool. Second part of that question, I say for you as well, is you were a star catcher at Manhattan College. You played at the Cape Cod League. That's where I actually met you because I was down there watching Johnny play. And I think one of the Chatham-A's players got hurt, and boom, there you are. You showed up. You find yourself being more strict with your catches than anyone else, being the fact that you were such a good catcher yourself.
It is a catcher is the offensive line of baseball. So you only notice the catcher when things are going wrong, is what I tell our guys. But I am very tough on them, and that's something that they know up front. I'm not a yeller by any means, though. I may talk a lot, though. I teach. I try my best to teach.
My guys are used to that because I don't shut up.
So, catchers. Yeah, listen, catchers though, you have a major responsibility. The game runs through you. So when we win, you win. When we lose, hey, you're our other coach in the field. So we're in the trenches with you.
100%. 100%. Thank you. Matt, how much emphasis do you think should be placed on middle infielders throwing from different arm angles? That's a question from Thomas Remen. He's a middle infielder from Zavarian High School. And I believe Thomas is a rising sophomore and will be with me this summer. Hopefully we get to that point.
Thomas, my thoughts on that are, Coach Kunderi mentioned athleticism. So there are two parts. There's two things that I would say to answer that question. If you are athletic enough to do things on the baseball field where you can get the balls, make throws from down under, side, over the top, to make the play and make it consistently, then I think that's perfectly fine. Let your athleticism play. I don't have an issue with that at all with a player. The second part of that is the only issue I would have with a player who's going to potentially want to throw from all arm angles is it must be practiced. Okay, don't all of a sudden in a game just pull out some funky release point on a play that you haven't practiced. You have got to practice all these things, and if it's practiced and I see it and you see it and your teammates see that you can make that play consistently and have done it before, it instills confidence in yourself, in your teammates, in your coaching staff. So be athletic, do your thing, but it's got to be something that has to be practiced on a regular basis, in my opinion.
Cool. Stony Brook got some real big time national attention in 2012 by reaching the College World Series in Omaha. I believe I go down to LSU. I go down to Baton Rouge every year for the last 4 years. They're still licking their wounds after that loss. Describe the feeling after you've coached that game and being able to win at that level. What kind of feeling was that like?
I'm still trying to figure that out. I think I appreciate anytime people bring up what happened in 2012, the shock the world run to the College World Series. So I appreciate you mentioning that to all the guys, everybody on this call. I have, and now what has it been? It's 8 years, and
Wow, the time flies, right?
yeah, I've said this, when I was first being asked this, and I don't really know if I have any different answer to that question. That I still can't find the words to either describe the feeling of accomplishing what we accomplished. because there are so many things that it took during that run. For example, when we won our regional in Miami, we won 3 elimination games to win that regional. We won our first game, lost our second. To win that regional, we had to win 3 in a row. Then we go to LSU, and we lose the first game, and we need to win 2 elimination. So it took 5 elimination games to get to Omaha. What those players did is it's hard to really describe. And the feeling as a result of it is also almost impossible. It's just,
It's like
years later, I have a tough time just, finding the proper words.
It's like living in Disneyland.
It sure was.
Listen, it's the same thing as when these guys reach the World Series, make the playoffs in the major leagues. Not everybody's able to do that on a day in and day out basis. So it's a special moment. I just thought we would share. One of the reasons why we're having these type of calls, and we've had these calls for the last 4 or 5 weeks, is to promote your programs, to promote your coaches. It's all about promoting you and your school. I want you guys to take the opportunity, to really do that, because I'm a strong believer of the Northeast baseball. I'm a strong believer that our kids can play and get to the next level. They want to play professional ball. They can do it by playing here in the Northeast, learning from guys like you and against the competition that's here. And we're tough. And the kids in the Northeast are tough.
Wholeheartedly agree.
Yes, sir. Philip, what is the most effective pitch a young pitcher should perfect? Is it a changeup? Is it a fastball? Is it, I think location? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, before I answer, I just want to go that 2012 Stony Brook team was extremely deserving of being in the College World Series. So I'm not sure how much they shocked anyone. They were outstanding. And I have to say, for Coach Sank, that 2011 team was also pretty deserving of a regional, and I didn't forget that, Coach.
Thanks, Phil.
Still not sure how that happened, but and as we're talking about the schools, Nick, Maine always got in the way of Seton Hall getting to the College World Series for a couple of years. So when I played at Seton Hall, Maine was just an outstanding national program and a regular at the College World Series, and had some great coaches up that way. And obviously the same things I want to say about Montclair State. I think you alluded to earlier about just a phenomenal history of coaches there, and I'm pretty certain Dave and his staff are going to do a great job and continue that tradition. So, as far as the best pitch you can develop, as a young man, it has to be your fastball. Even though we're seeing a lot of different trends that are going on at the highest levels right now, but when you're young, you want to develop your fastball, because that will also allow you to develop more arm strength and develop more velocity. But the most important thing, you should aspire not just to one or the other, to have a great velocity, but not have great command of it. And some guys have really good command of a fastball, but not have great velocity. And so you should, your goal, you should have, the standards at the highest standards and the best goals of achieving both an outstanding fastball with great command and excellent arm strength behind it. So because that's usually at the younger level the pitch you're going to compete with the most. But if I can have an asterisk on this, is that if you're following the trends, what's happening at the big league level, your most important pitch is probably going to be the one that that misses bats. You know, as a young fella, you may have, you know, your breaking ball may be a better pitch, you know, or a changeup. A changeup's a great pitch. There's not a pitch that's not a great pitch as long as the pitch itself is a great pitch, if that makes any sense, you know? So I think the best thing you can develop is the pitch that gets you a swing and miss, especially when you need it.
Well, this next question is from me, and you'll probably have to scratch your head a little bit to think of the answer. Over the years, how many players did you see get drafted? And who would you consider the top guy coming out of your stable? And did he make the major leagues?
It would be probably tell you right up front. It'd be hard to tell you who was the you know, the best guy. I've had some you know, just outstanding young men over the years. You know, when you've been around as long as I was, you get an opportunity to see a lot of outstanding pitchers. But certainly, you know, had a few that did some really good things for me and for the program. But the best guys, the best guys were the guys that made the pitching staff better. You know, and that's probably the best way I could answer it, Nick, is that usually, you know, whether they were, you know, they didn't have to be an All-American or they didn't have to be a high draft choice to make the pitching staff better. So if you're an infield, you know, if you're a position player, I'm sure the coaches will think of guys who made the rest of the team better in so many ways. So a lot of times for me, it probably, you know, that guy would have been a starter who went long in his starts and ate up a lot of innings and always put the team in a position to win. So we had a lot of guys like that, and a lot of local guys like that.
Cool. David, I have a right-handed pitcher from New Jersey, Christian Rice. He's not a big 6'1", 6'2" guy, but his velo is about between 83, 85, and he wants to know how important is size for a right-handed pitcher whose velo is at around 83, 85.
Yeah, that's a great question. I should defer to Phil on that, right? You know, it's all relative to what your goals and your aspirations are. And then it's about really setting your own definition of what success is there. You know, there are guys that aren't that big that are very successful at the highest levels. When you look at a guy like Altuve, now is the average pitcher probably bigger in the big leagues? Absolutely. You know, you're probably looking at 6'2", 6'3" is probably your average pitcher. And Phil, correct me if I'm wrong on that. But your average position players are probably a little bit smaller than that. You know, I think it's relative to every level. I think at the Division III level, you know, we're looking at guys that can get outs immediately and right away. So if you're pitching at 83, 85 and you can command the zone and you can spin a breaking ball and compete with two pitches, the chances are you're going to be a viable option for us in some way on the mound, regardless of size. You know, whereas at Division I level, when I recruited for a number of years, the projection piece, I believe, came into it a little bit more for me, especially on the pitcher's side of what would their development look like if you do add size, if you do add strength, if you do add arm strength, and you continue to build on some sort of frame that you have. But I mean, hey, Billy Wagner defied all the odds as an undersized guy. So, you know, I wouldn't put too much stake in it. You know, if you have ability and talent, you're going to succeed. And I remember Coach saying Frankie Van Durkis sticks out in my head. He wasn't an overall big guy, but man, he had, you know, he had some brass underneath him, the biggest set, and he would go out and beat you. And there's something to be said about that at the college level when you're talking about competitiveness versus size. So, you know, you're blessed with the tool set you're given, you know, with your body. Make it the best you can. condition your body so it is the best conditioned it is, and then compete with what you have and go from there. So I wouldn't put too much stock into the numbers though.
Cool. Cool. Nick Derber, Maximus Cruz. You may want to recruit this kid just on the simple fact that on his name alone. Sounds like a warrior. Maximus Cruz. Academics, what are your requirements at Maine?
So our requirements are not terribly high to get into Maine, but the program has a standard for ourselves. So we won't recruit anybody that's really below an 80, 81 average. And your GPA needs to be close to that 1,000. Your SAT needs to be close to that 1,000 mark. Because at the end of the day, especially if we're going to come and invest in you with scholarship, I want to make sure that you take pride in your grades. When I tell guys that the number one thing that you're going to school for is to go to school, hey, listen, you're a good baseball player, but if you're ineligible, I can't help you. And at the end of the day, you might get the chance to play some professional baseball. And Mr. D will tell you this, and go talk to those of you that know Johnny D. I'll tell you right now, you make no money. You got to go to work. So that piece of paper you get when you graduate is of the utmost importance. So I typically want to see some guys that are in the 85 out of 100. And, you got to be able to be somewhere in that 950 to 1,000 range. Just being eligible on my team is not an option. We require 2.3 GPAs to be a travel partner. So if you're below that 2.3 GPA and you're on the roster, you're on baseball probation, which means you don't travel. That's really that's my requirement. So you can get into University of Maine. I can guarantee that. That doesn't mean you're going to be playing at the university.
Oh, I'm sorry. Somebody was banging at my door while I was listening to your response.
I didn't know you were catering like you do your camp.
I ordered food for tomorrow, and they brought it tonight. I don't know. People, they're just looking at food down my throat. There's another question for you, Nick, from Michael Doyle. What are your thoughts on a two-way player? Michael can throw the ball, and he's also a middle infielder. He's pretty good. He's pretty good on the mound.
If you can do both, I love it. But you got to be able to do both to be a two-way player. So I think I speak for every coach. We like good baseball players. So if you can do both, that's just a plus. But if you're a good baseball player, awesome.
Michael is, and he's definitely interested in all the schools that are on this here call. One last question for each one of you. I'll ask you. We'll start with Matt. That question would be, what are your needs for the next 3 years? What are you looking for, Matt?
That's a really good question. Before I answer that question, Dave Lorber, I think this is important for the guys to know. He mentioned Frank Van Derker. We've had he did not get drafted. We've had most success of guys getting drafted out of our program or pitchers. He was not drafted out of Stony Brook. He probably was just pushing 6 foot tall. But Frank threw 3 no-hitters in his time at Stony Brook. He won the game that put us in Omaha. He threw a complete game in game 3. And he probably sat 84, 86. He might have touched a 7 every once in a while. The way he was as effective as he was, one, he was an absolute bulldog, and he wanted the ball anytime, anywhere. But Dave said this, and I totally agree. You got a solid 2-pitch mix, you're going to get people out. If you got a 3-pitch mix, you're going to be really good. If you can you can toe the rubber with a 4-pitch mix, and I'm not saying get all crazy, but Frankie Van Derker, between his makeup, and he could basically come at you with a 4-pitch mix. That's how you throw 3 no-hitters and win the rubber game in a super regional to get to Omaha. So, again, 84, 86, not super big. And he filled up the zone and worked fast. So if you're jotting notes, mental notes, whatever, that's one of the greatest pitchers we've ever had in Stony Brook. Okay. Back to your question, Nick. What are our needs? Well, as you guys may or may not know, so the NCAA has allowed spring sports to, they've allowed everyone to come back for an additional year if they'd like it. So that's created, although it's awesome, and I totally agree with, to have your season taken away, just like you guys are all experiencing now, is horrible feeling. And the NCAA felt that they should have a year back. That's going to create some interesting things moving forward. We're going to be lucky enough to have some seniors that want to come back. We're going to bring them back. But moving forward, if our freshman class and our sophomore class decides to want that extra year, that's something that we're going to have to deal with down the road. The one thing that will go back to normal after this year is the NCAA only allows 27 guys on scholarship in Division I and a roster limit of 35. So we don't have to worry about that this year. We still got to get back to that. So it's going to be a little bit different because we're dealing with that. We're always looking for, generally speaking, Coach Thurber mentioned it. We're always looking for really good baseball players, and there's always that need for an arm and arms. That'll never change. That is the number one part of the game, that's kind of where I think if I were to sum it up, we're still trying to figure that out, just like we're trying, just because everything is so up in the air right now.
Okay, good. We're looking for baseball players. So we got a whole bunch of them. That's what we do. Phil, a lot of these here questions that I've been asking tonight, off the record, where they weren't from players, coming from my good friend Mike Lopapara, and Mike is an amazing guy. He's been around forever. He's probably one of the most sincere, and he's been around for a long time. He's one of the most sincere guys who really takes care of the kids, makes them feel wanted, and gives them a lot of good information. So a lot of those questions that I were asking were prepared by him. But Phil, he has a question for you.
Phil, first of all, it's good to see you again. I'm glad you're doing well.
Great to see you, love.
Coaching with Frank Del George and Greg Del George, they're always talking about Italy. So I want to ask you, what was it like playing in a foreign country? How was the talent? How was the fans? How were the umpires? What was it like?
Thank you. That's a great question, Lope. I have to go back a long time now to think of that, but it's not that hard because it was one of the best experiences of my life. So I had a great time. I was in college and somehow ended up in Florence, Italy, to play for a couple of summers, and so it's not hard to be in Florence in the summer for a college age young man and not have a great time. So, and I did that for 2 summers, and in one of those I made the Italian national team and played and won a European championship while I was there. So that turned out to be a great experience. And I think what a lot of people don't know is that when I got done playing pro ball, I went back and I coached in Italy, in Milan, and had a championship season there with the Mediolanum. Yeah, it was just very different. A lot of us, a lot of the players now, you just go and you play. You mentioned, Chatham A's up in the Cape or New England or in the Carolinas, Virginias, wherever it may be up in New York State. I just had an opportunity that came out of nowhere, Lopes, and then there were a lot of good coaches, like you just mentioned, that were over there doing a pretty good job. Coach Landolfi from St. John's was there as well, along with Frankie. But the experience, and I think this is one of the things that I would say to a lot of the young guys here, is if you're going to be a baseball player, you got to be willing to go, where you need to go, and do whatever it takes for you to continue to develop and get better, for you to continue to mature and experience different things. So if you're going to be at one of these programs, with the coaches that are on tonight, when the summertime comes, you need to be willing to go. We've sent players to Alaska, to Hawaii, to the Midwest, to Texas, to California, to the Cape, and so many leagues, closer here. But a young man, you want to be a really good player. You want to be a guy that's got a lot of grit, somebody that's willing to do whatever it takes. I went overseas. It wasn't hard, but I went overseas, and it didn't hurt that I spoke fluent Italian as well. So great experience.
Awesome. David.
So you want me to?
I know you got your work cut out for you, and you'll be out there, banging, digging in the trenches. What do you need for the next 3 years?
Absolutely. So what's interesting about Division III is we do not have a roster size limit. I personally cap our roster size at 35 because that's what I think I'm most used to, and I think it's most manageable. Because as we start to get a little bit more than that, the reality is, 9 guys are playing at a time, and you're pitching a stable of probably 9 to 12 pitchers a year that are getting significant innings, depending on how deep your staff is. And I think you just open up the door to kind of unhappiness at times, because the reality is most guys want to play. The fun is in playing, and the fun is in winning at the end of the day, and I get that. So while I cap ours, we're going to be in an interesting situation just because we are walking in as a new coaching staff this year, and we are going to be doing some changes. So we are looking actively at every recruiting class right now, from the 2020s to the 2023s, at every position. And Coach Sank said it best: pitching will always be the name of the game. And then from there, we like to shoot right up the gut. Catching position is very important, as Coach Durbus said. You can take shortstops, and they're pretty versatile. You can take, middle infielders, move them, center fielders, move them. But we like to look up the middle, and then, you look for guys with special abilities. There's things in this game that can change, like foot speed is a huge thing for me. I love playing aggressive, love playing fast. That's important. Specialty guys, especially on the mound. We talked about multi-arm slots a little bit. If you're a funk guy and you can get guys out from the left side on a lower slot, or the right side from the lower slot, I think there's a premium on that. I think you're even seeing that more in the big leagues now today, with guys that have some different arm slots and some funk to them that can be consistent and get outs. But we are actively looking for every class from 2020s to 2023s at every position right now. So we're wide open.
And before you talked about Yogi Berra sitting up on that little terrace over there, that was one of the greatest things that I've done when I was coaching. I used to walk down the right field line while the guys would be warming up, and I would just have a conversation with him. He would be out there all the time. He was such a good guy, good player. But cool, Nick. Real quick, I really like to get all my guys. I just got a late question. It really was directed towards Coach Loba. He knows Jason Albert. He's one of my guys at Moore Catholic High School. But I'll let Nick answer this question. Pop time. What do you look for in pop time from a high school player?
It depends on how fast your finger is, but somewhere in that 2-0. More importantly, the ball's got to get there. So you got to be accurate. For me, the biggest thing I look for besides accuracy is release. Arm strength to me is the least important and throwing mechanics, oddly enough. So release and accuracy. So, if you're a 2-0, 195-2-0, you're an elite throwing catcher. I struggle when I see people putting on social media 172s. I was pretty good in the minor league. I actually led the minor leagues.
All right, 172.
I don't think I ever cracked a 1.8 or 1.85. So, get the ball there, get rid of it, you'll be okay.
Cool. And Jason, if you're still listening in, which I'm sure you are, Coach Dauber really answered your second part of your question. What are you looking for in catches? And it's, for all intent and purposes, it's being athletic, like everybody said before, and obviously that's a premium position. Always looking up the middle. Most colleges do that. So Nick, what do you need for the next 3 years?
I think same as everybody else. Pitching is how pitch. You always need good arms, we want guys that can run a little bit. You either got to be able to run, stick it, or play defense. We like to be strong up the middle and work our way out. But obviously, if you're going to be the corner somewhere, your bat's got to be your bat's got to carry you. So, to beat a dead horse, we want good baseball players. That's really what we want. Best available athlete. I'll leave it at that. Is what we're looking for.
Cool. I appreciate you guys coming on to the call tonight, spending all this time with our guys. Really means a lot to me that you would take time out and spend it with us. And we look to always build good relationships with our college coaches, our college friends. I'd appreciate very much if you guys stayed on the line. Don't hang up. I want to say goodbye to the boys and then get a chance to say goodbye to you guys without anybody else on the line. So just hang in there for a second. Okay, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm going to unmute you. So if you just all, as you're saying, as we're going off the call, if you all just want to say thank you very much and then hang up. I hope you enjoyed. The night. It was great, and I wish everybody on the call a good night. Thank you. Good night, boys.
Thank you, Coach.
Okay, boys, take care.
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it.
Very welcome, Chris.
All right, thank you, Coach.
You got it, bud. We'll talk to you soon.
See you, Coach Spangler.
Okay, bud. Take care of yourself.
Shit.
Okay. Mikey Sutter.